Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome founder, ArabNet, Omar Christidis.
Good morning, everyone. How's everyone doing this morning? Yeah, I want a little bit more than that. How's everyone doing this morning? Yes. Okay, good. I want to know how many people here made an awesome connection that's going to help them grow their business. Please raise your hand. Good. Well, I hope the rest of you will do that today. It's my privilege to be moderating this panel on innovation in investing. And I'd like to take a moment to introduce our panelists. First to my left, Mr. Essam Shleu, founder of the Africa Impact Group from Mali. Mr. Saïd Brahimi, CEO of the Morocco Financial Board, which is building the Casablanca Financial City. Chonchol Gupta, CEO and founder of Rebirth Financial, here from the United States. Eric Kakou, co-founder and CEO of Entrepreneurial Solutions Partners. And Tarek Sijilmassi, CEO of Crédit Agricole du Maroc. And I apologize for the French. So before we started, I did want to take a quick straw poll from the audience. How many entrepreneurs do we have in the audience? Raise your hand. Raise your hand high so we can see. Okay, great. How many investors or funding institutions? Okay. Much fewer. How many policymakers or government-related people? Okay, great. So it gives us a better sense of our panel. I wanted to start out first by asking our panelists where they see the funding gaps in their markets. Is it in the early stage, seed stage? Is it in growth capital and private equity? And yeah, please go ahead. Who'd like to start? Chonchol.
Well, I'll start, and I'd first like to say Shukran la Sahib al-Jalala, Shukran al-Sahab al-Maghrabi. Thank you to the King and the people of Morocco for your hospitality, to Ambassador Alawi's family, who epitomizes the hospitality of this great nation. As Vice President Joe Biden said, the Moroccan people were the first to recognize the United States as an independent country. From the historic crossroads of Tangiers to the booming financial districts in Casablanca and the expansive and beautiful deserts of the Moroccan Sahara, it is my wish that our nation's brotherhood continue to grow and prosper. I think that the one thing that I've heard in our conversations this week with entrepreneurs and financial leaders in Morocco is that we do have a great opportunity in North Africa and in Africa in general, but what we are seeing across the whole world, including the United States, is that we have a lack of access to capital in the middle markets. We have great programs and governmental support on the lower end, say $25,000 and less for entrepreneurs to access, and we have great opportunities at the high end of $1 million and more. But we, across the board, as citizens of the world, are missing that real middle market of $100,000, $200,000 that really helps the backbone entrepreneurs to grow and expand their businesses.
Thanks, Chonchol. What do you think, Essam?
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you very much, Marrakesh, for welcoming us. It's a real pleasure to be here. Morocco is a wonderful example of success for the globe, for Africa, for the Arab world, and we thank you very much for all the hospitality that you've given us over the past 2 days. To come back to your question, I can speak about the case of sub-Saharan Africa, where we see the biggest financing need, and that could apply to other regions of the world. For investments below $50,000, we have numerous microfinance institutions that could give money to the mom selling, having her fruit business, or someone selling her product at the market. And that's addressed by microfinance. This is what they need. They know those people will be able to reimburse, and then they'll be able to loan them back the business. The business is clear. But for people, and there's the commercial banks that are here for investment above, let's say, $2 million, and that's cover real estate projects, that cover businesses and entrepreneurs that have access to collaterals and that have less risks. But then there's this term in finance called the missing middle of investing. That's between $50,000 to $100,000 up to $2 million that's missing. Commercial banks wouldn't lend to them because they will tell them you're too risky. Microfinance institution wouldn't lend to them because they will tell them you're too big for us. So they are looking for financing desperately and they cannot find it.
So I'm going to keep our conversation moving. We've got 100 to 200,000. We have 50 to 100, maybe all the way up to 1 million. Anybody else want to take a stab at this?
I would like to maybe take a slightly different view. It is my belief that above and beyond money, what most entrepreneurs are missing in our markets are the skills and knowledge to actually access the financing. For example, there is $36 billion that was spent in 2013 on impact investing. And of that amount, about 34% is going to Africa. But I'm sure if I ask in this room who has access to impact investing money, the hands that I will see are few.
Can you give us a one-sentence definition of impact investing for our audience?
So impact investing would be investors that are looking for a financial return, but that would also look at whether or not the business is actually creating development impact. So it's really trying to do well while doing good at the same time.
Okay. So we have, do you have a number that you want to give us in terms of a funding gap for the answer to the question?
A number that I'm not sure I understand your question.
In terms of where the gap is in terms of the funding landscape.
I think in terms of the funding landscape, as I was saying, the issue is more on the knowledge side.
Okay.
So I believe the numbers that were given are very good,
Perfect.
but I don't think people have the skills to actually access the little bit of money that's there.
Tariq, Said.
Okay, Omar. I would like to say that it's difficult to give figures because it depends on the economies. It depends on the country where you are. It depends on the size of the economy. But generally speaking, in Africa, we are lacking of seed capital and maybe growth capital. And when you look at private equity funds, international private equity funds, the biggest one, they are always looking for deals worth tens or hundreds of million US dollars. And such deals are very scarce, and you cannot find them in Africa. So we need to nurture our entrepreneurs and make them grow, to give room to these big funds, to make them contribute to financing African growth. So I guess it's quite difficult to give really figures because it depends mainly on the size of the economy.
But your perspective is that there is a gap also in terms of financing growth, in that our companies are not large enough to attract the interest of global private equity.
That's it.
Okay.
That's the point, and we have to build an institutional framework to attract and develop such big deals within Africa.
Tariq, did you have something to add to that?
Yeah, I would agree with Said by saying that the figure is not the main issue here. I think the main issue here is credibility. Businesses or entrepreneurs have to build credibility. That's the most important thing for us bankers. I'm both a banker and I deal in microfinance. And we feel that it's very important that the people who come to us, entrepreneurs, have a credible business plan, a credible project. And that doesn't have to do necessarily with collaterals. I mean, you must not equate financing with collateral. You must equate financing with a credible project. So I think that the key issue here is how you build credibility. And building credibility is, of course, the idea, the main idea, the first idea that the entrepreneur brings to the table. But at the same time, it's also the environment, the incentives that can be put on the table so that the financial institution can find credibility, because basically, as a banker, credibility comes from the quality of your project or your credit history. If you're a new entrepreneur, you don't have a credit history. So your credibility has to be built from scratch for somewhere else. So there could be the basic idea, but there could be also incentives. And I'd like to focus on those incentives that can be, put on the table by government, by private funds, to enhance the entrepreneur's credibility.
Excellent. And so it sounds like you're aligned with Mr. Kaku about the need for expertise and skills in this front. So let's take your question actually and focus on what can governments do to stimulate this kind of investment? How can governments help unlock private and public funds for the use for startups?
Well, if I may just give the example of Morocco.
Yes.
Well, first we have the microfinance system, which right now has close to 1 million clients. So that's 1 million family actually, stepping out from unemployment or poverty and into the real economy. Then you also have banks with the low-income banking sector, which is ever growing. And you have the government, which has put together a number of tools. For example, the central bank has put together a fund which helps, smaller entrepreneurs come into the financing, scheme by giving them counter guarantees through a government body which is called the Caisse Centrale de Garantie. Okay, so that's one, and I think that this fund right now is been funded with $120 million, 1 billion dirhams, and okay, so that's one example.
Do we have other examples from?
Sure.
Please.
I believe that the main thing that governments can do beyond, it really helps if they can dedicate some sort of capital that SME investors can have access to. I think Ghana has done it. I think Nigeria is thinking about it. Angola has done it. Cote d'Ivoire is thinking about it. I think that's going to be important. So I mean specifically government setting aside a certain envelope to really allow investors to fundraise and use that money to lend to SMEs. I think that helps. But I think beyond that, one of the main role investments that the governments can play is to solve what I call the translation problem. So you have a commercial banker or an investor who doesn't really understand the business of the startup, and you have startups that are not actually able to articulate their business plans. So if governments could play that role of making sure that both are trained and both understand how to communicate their needs to other stakeholders better, I think that would help a great deal.
So we're talking again about training, right? To be able to secure the funding to bridge the gap between investors and entrepreneurs.
Absolutely.
I want to push on the question of governments because I feel like there are a lot of funds dedicated by governments, but then the government tends to be heavy-handed in the way that it implements these funds, right? There's too much bureaucracy, there's too much red tape. How can the government actually put these funds at an arm's length so that they're effective?
I would just like to say that I think you hit the nail on the head here, and the way that I see the government can best facilitate investment in small businesses is to put policies in place that let the free market take its course and let the investors who want to bring money, who want to deliver funds to entrepreneurs, be able to deliver those funds. Here in Marrakesh and in Morocco, you sit on the crossroads of investment cultures from Europe, from America, from the Arab countries, and to be able to allow those investments, as they're doing with Credit Agricole, as they're doing with Casa Finance City, allowing those investors to come and make credible legal investments in and around the African region, the North African region, but just allowing investors to come and reach those entrepreneurs and deliver the new technologies.
So what does that mean from a policy level?
On a policy level, I believe that, as we've done in the United States recently, is deregulating the banking sector and allowing individuals and institutions to more freely invest money in small businesses and deliver that middle market gap and cover that middle market gap as effectively and efficiently as possible.
Rahim, I saw that you kind of shook your head on this topic. Did you have a different opinion about the deregulation of the banking sector? Okay. Well, Essam, you had a point that you wanted to make.
Yes, I can talk on that. So small businesses, in most of the developing countries, the youth make up the majority of the population. We are all less than 30 years old. We graduate from school, we don't have access to jobs. So how to do that? We can take the example of the United States. They develop a segment called the Small Business Administration that set up small business centers in universities, in incubators, where they help the businesses with setting up their business plan, with registration, and so forth. And then they also work with banks and give them a line of financing to directly lend to those investors. Another point that I want to mention, which is a very powerful tool within finance that's being developed right now, is the concept of social impact bond and developmental impact bond. For the case of entrepreneurship, how it would play is the government will agree with investors and say, we're going to sign a deal right now. If you can help us get employment for 5,000 youth within Marrakesh, or 10,000 youths within Marrakesh, and increase the number of small and medium businesses and startups that are succeeding, in the next 3 years, we'll reimburse you the amount that you invested plus capital. So instead of investing in a government entity, they just let the investor do the work, come back with the data. You reach the deal, we pay you. You don't reach the deal, you lose your money. And that's very powerful. So social impact bond, developmental impact bond is a new tool within finance.
Tariq, you had something to add.
Yeah, in terms of the tools that can be developed, I think that there are two additional areas where we can go. First is in regulation, banking regulation. You know that in the Basel banking regulation has one very significant item there is the concept of probability of default. Probability of default is how risky is the business, and it converts in terms of equity by a 100%, ponderation when you have the equity requirements. Now, we need to see some advances there so that this concept doesn't become a hindrance to developing this kind of business. So I think that definitely there should be some thought put into this concept of probability of default. The second thing is that, and this is done here by the Moroccan Central Bank, is that sometimes you can, on the other hand, encourage this type of financing by banks by, for example, we have a mechanism which allows it to refinance our loans that are given to small enterprises in the central banks. So we have a portfolio, and that we can bring the portfolio as collateral to the central bank to get refinancing. So there are mechanisms where banks can be encouraged to finance this type of programs.
So I want to continue with the topic of banks and specifically loans, right? We talk about loans as a potential financing mechanism for entrepreneurs, but loans have issues. Most importantly, that you need collateral for most loans. How are banks dealing with the idea of a lot of service business models and knowledge economy business models not having the kind of collateral needed? And how can we make loans a better financing instrument? Said.
I would like to say that you cannot ask banks to do everything, finance small entrepreneurs, and at the same time make people who have deposits be sure that they can get back their deposits. The work of a bank is very simple. The bank is selling security for its clients, those who have deposits. And the bank buys risks. And doing this, the bank has to be sure that all clients may take off their deposit whenever they want. So this is the question. And that's why you have such a strong regulation within the central banks. But if you want to develop knowledge economy and help small entrepreneurs start their businesses, you have to have maybe a specific policy, government policy, with stimulus for those. Maybe you have to think of seed capital with, once again, stimulus for those who are investing in this seed capital. And then you will create kind of ecosystem that will nurture small entrepreneurs and make them grow and make them express their full potential.
Eric.
Yeah, I mean, as somebody who has actually started many knowledge businesses, I want to push back on the notion that you can expect banks to finance a knowledge business from scratch. From my own personal experience, I mean, if you have a knowledge business, one of the ways in which you can begin is by making sure that you get clients, customers. I mean, come up with a pilot as soon as possible, sell that pilot, get some money, basically show anybody that would want to fund you that you've been able to prove the concept. And I think for us to really assume that banks are going to finance knowledge businesses, it just won't happen. I think the question that you are asking is, after they have proved that concept and after they have revenues, how do they grow? To me, at that point, it becomes a lot easier to talk to existing institutions because at least you have a track record. So I really believe that, I mean, and some of the businesses that I started are in Africa, others are in the US. The truth is, nowhere in the world can you come with just, I have a good idea, and then the bank will write you a check. It just doesn't work
and
like
that's
that.
something that wasn't exactly my question. My question was more focused on, can we make the loan a better financing instrument, right? Not necessarily the loan as it exists today. And maybe, Chonchol, you've done a little bit of this yourself.
Yeah, so in the last 5 years of our operations, we've had 0 defaults and only 1 delinquency. And I think that, well, I can tell you that a lot of our loans that we facilitate do go to service-based institutions, service-based companies. But let's remember that we're not talking about startup finance. We're talking about existing companies. We're talking about existing revenue models. And the proper way to lend to service companies is to base it on their revenue. It's not based on an asset, obviously. It's not based on their future sales. It's based on their previous performances, and it's based on their previous revenue models, because that is the proof in the pudding, as we say, because that is what we can base hopeful future sales on.
So we discussed earlier, as a side note, my personal bias for the knowledge economy. So I have to turn this question back, because now we said, well, loans are not available for knowledge economy companies. We don't have that many angel investors and seed investors. How many people here would say they are knowledge economy entrepreneurs? Okay. How many people are industrial entrepreneurs? Agriculture? Okay. And when I mean knowledge economy, I also mean all services. Yes? Okay, thank you. There we go. Now you got me. So, again, services and knowledge economy, raise your hand. This is by far the largest chunk of our audience. Yes? How do we fund these guys?
Look, let me repeat myself. I really do believe that the best source of funding, if you are a knowledge business, is your customer. The customer is going to pay you your salary, cover your expenses, and give you a profit to service them if you have a product that works. So to me, you know, and this is the point that you were making, you have to figure out a way to get that first customer, those first 5 customers. That's just the way you do it. That's the beginning.
So
now,
then we have to have a transactional business model. It has to be something that brings in money from day one. We can't have a project that's really, really big, but that has delayed revenues.
Look, I mean, I'm really assuming that you have to start the journey from where you are standing. So I have many ideas that I think are brilliant, but I also know for sure that I can get the funding from the bank. I'm going to work, raise the money from my work and then invest in it, prove the concept, and then from there go to a bank or go to a fund. But that's just the way it works.
Anyone else have thoughts on this question? Yes, please, Tariq.
I think you should understand that in the financial sector and banking sector, we can custom-made any product that you want. I'm going to go back to my first intervention and say that the main issue here is credibility. So if you're credible, if your business model is credible, then we can custom-made anything. For example, I'm going to stray from digital and service economy and go back to my main area
I
of
haven't
business,
said the word digital yet, but I did say service. And that's important because that covers a larger portion of our audience.
Yeah, I'm just going to give an example which is very, very basic, just to say how you can really make a loan to fit the needs. which is completely far away from our discussion today. But we finance dates, palm trees that give dates. And you know that a palm tree, when it's planted, it'll grow for 7 years, and it'll start producing after 7 years. And so in my bank, we made a specially fit a product which fits to this area of business. And we've designed a product which actually, the first reimbursement comes after 7 years, which is unique. Okay?
And
so if we can do this for palm trees and dates, we can do this for the knowledge economy. All you have to bring forth is something that is credible. Again, I say, we're not a mortgage house. We don't sell credit against mortgage. We just need credibility.
Perfect. I have to say that a tree that is grown 7 years from now, I'm going to pretty well be able to predict the revenue stream of that tree.
Exactly.
Whereas I cannot predict the revenue stream 7 years down the line of a travel agency or a service business.
Absolutely.
But other responses, I saw.
Yes, I mean, we're talking about entrepreneurship here. And in entrepreneurship, we need to believe in the idea that is at stake, and someone needs to connect. Mr. President of Casablanca Finance City said that banks cannot do everything. So maybe we need to look and talk, how can we bring more angel investors
Right.
to the game, seed investors to the game. I was reading the statistics last night, and in the US, angel investors are around 300,000 people. They've invested up to $24 billion in the US economy and have had on average 27% return. So, and that brings me, last month I was in Amsterdam, so I went to visit Impact Hub, which is a global incubator network. So I went there. Siman is a global managing director of Impact Hub. He brought me into the incubator. I was like, this is like an incubator that I've been to in Africa, where you have a bunch of entrepreneurs that are hustling to try to get their things off the ground with no support. And I sit down, and he was like, okay, Isam, let me introduce you to Miss Jane. I was like, oh, how are you, Miss Jane? And he was like, she's an investor. She's now retired. She has made a lot of money during her career, and she wants to give back to the community because she believes in the power of entrepreneurship. And now she's here. She's coming here every day or so, checking up on those entrepreneurs and backing them up with finances. And Ms. Jen and other investors are doing that in incubators all across the world, but we don't see that in emerging markets. So I'll send a message.
So then how do we encourage those angel investors, right? We all know that they're not here. We can ask the audience again. How many angel investors are there in the audience? I see one hand. One lone hand in this audience. Oh, I see a second one. Yes, now they're getting encouraged. They're coming out of the woodwork.
Omar, I'm gonna challenge that notion, because when I look across this audience, I don't see one angel investor or two angel investors. I see a sea of angel investors, because it doesn't have to be $1 million at a time.
That's great.
It can be $100 at a time. And that makes an impact.
Wonderful. But these guys are not angels today because they haven't made their first investment, maybe. How do we get them out of the angel closet, if you will?
Well, I think that's why we have a couple of us up here, and that's why we have this panel, because it takes the banks, it takes the public-private partnerships, it takes the technology platforms, and what we want to do with the North African Economic Research Council is adapt and create a platform for North Africa, for Sub-Saharan Africa, and it is something that we really have the opportunity to do, to harness those $100.
The opportunity is there.
The opportunity is there.
Practical, concrete ways that we can encourage more angel investors. Take from
I
any.
think first and foremost, people have to understand what angel investing is. So I think it's really a term that you hear at these conferences. I'm sure if we did a street poll outside and ask people what is angel investing, they wouldn't be able to answer that question. So first, they have to understand what it is.
Awareness and training.
Yeah.
Great.
Number two, we need to make sure that the entrepreneurs themselves come up with bankable projects.
Okay.
I have served as a sort of angel to many people, but the issue is they have ideas, and it's a good idea, but they can't really tell you how it's going to work.
You're reiterating Tarek's point
Right?
of credibility.
Number two, I think that's really, really critical. Number three, you have to even have a group of people. I mean, the US has over 300 million people. Of that, it's only 300,000 who are angel investors, and this is a very, very wealthy country, right? if you work at the percentages in a place like Africa, we have to really have a middle class that grows, people that have money that they can invest, you know? So to me, those are some of the conditions that have to be in place. And last but not least, I think is the issue of mindsets. People have to understand that as an angel investor, for every 10 projects you do, 9.5 will fail.
I think actually that's my perspective is that's the biggest problem.
That's really critical.
And that most investors would rather build a building because it's less likely to fail and more clear revenue streams. But Said, did you want to say something?
No, just to add something. You have to have bankable projects. You have to gain credibility. That's for sure. But something which is very important and which is quite different from a country to another, from the United States to Europe to Africa, it's the mindset. All people are not entrepreneurs, and all people have not this conviction that you might be a business angel and you must help your countrymen. And this is very important. You cannot change the mindset of people. This may come very slowly.
Actually, I believe you can change mindsets of people. You see that a lot in public health around HIV, AIDS, and all those diseases. I think what has to be done is we have to find angel investors that have done well, which can share their experiences. That would help in convincing others that they should do it.
And I'm sure that we could leverage the diaspora community, right? There are many successful Moroccans abroad who would be interested in angel investing. Tarek, did you want to add something?
Yeah, I wanted to add 2 points. One, concerning the mindset that Said was talking about. I think it's very important to realize that there are some cultural issues here. As far as entrepreneurship is concerned, failure should be a possibility which is accepted. And I know that in the United States, a person who sets out to promote a project and fails is just a step in his professional life. In our cultures, failure is considered as a taboo, and very often I see as a banker that young people who try to build something and fail, they never get up from it again. So I think that we have to understand that failure is part of the process and take steps to organize the way that young people can fail. That's the first point. The second point is that in order to make businesses bankable or new ideas bankable, there is another actor there, which is not necessarily business seed money. There can be business angels, but don't have fundings. They're just there for the training and to accompany the investor. And I would like to point out to one such person here. He's busy on his phone, Mr. Reda Marini. He's there. If you can stand up, just so that people can recognize you. I want to recognize this person. Reda is one of the founders of the microfinance sector in Morocco. He's one of the founders. And he has, in the past 3 years or 4 years, created a concept which he calls the House of the Young Entrepreneur, which is exactly the type of place where a young entrepreneur, of course, it's built to the specificities of Morocco. So it's not digital, because most of these entrepreneurs are in Main Street economy. I mean, they're not in high tech, but some of them could be in high tech. And so Reda has built this house of the young entrepreneur where
we need 10 Redas, right?
Yeah,
we need
exactly.
100 Redas.
And I want to acknowledge him because
how do we get that?
He brings projects to our bank, and based on the fact that he tells us that this person, I have reviewed his business model, his business plan, I have given him training, and that's where he gives credibility to this project.
I do want to turn the questions to the audience. And there is one question that I promised I would ask Said on stage, which is that when I read about the Casablanca Financial City and we were talking about financial panel, I was thinking, what does the Casablanca Financial City actually mean for entrepreneurs? I mean, we're bringing a bunch of financial institutions to Casablanca. They're big banks that are going to do big business with big businesses. How is this relevant for the entrepreneur? And then I will take questions from the audience. There are a lot of questions from the audience. This gentleman right here in the front with the checkered shirt, with the striped shirt. But I'll turn the floor first over to Said.
Thank you, Omar. Well, Casablanca Finance City is about institutional framework. It's about business environment. It is about doing business and it's about talent pool, it's about capital flow and people flow. It's about giving the right platform for international investors to tap in the opportunities that Africa can offer. And you have to consider that the potential of Africa is widely recognized today. There is a huge potential. It's the second fastest growing region in the world, but still the economies are very small, and Africa is lacking of critical mass. So it's very important, and we know that when you have a proximity of a financial center, you can enhance and foster the growth of a whole region. That's why CFC has been designed to help West, North, and Central Africa express its potential and bring to this region all the financing it needs. And
but is that going to really impact early stage entrepreneurs?
It will have an impact, not directly on early stage, but if you have financing for big enterprises and you have financing for growth capital, then you will create incentives for seed capital for small entrepreneurs to start, because they can have the issue for their enterprises once they have started. They can find financing, there will be a lot of money available, and you have to just kind of find the right project to start your business.
So we hope that money trickles down to the smaller entrepreneurs. Okay, we're going to take the question from the gentleman.
Good morning. My name is Hisham Al-Dabbagh, and I'm from Saudi Arabia. I'm a board member in the Saudi Moroccan Businessmen Council.
Ahla wa sahla.
And I'm also a consultant to a private-public partnership, SME portfolio based in Saudi Arabia. My question is actually about technological innovation. In fact, being formerly a board member in a South African-based telecom company, which is targeting the bottom of the pyramid segment, those who are not served by GSM operator, those who are the unprivileged people, the one that cannot afford having mobile or handsets. Talking about unprivileged people, and this is a great market and huge market. From the VC's point of view, how can we channel more funds and move more capitals into social investment and into enabling villages entrepreneurs to create a connection point in their life? Thank you very much.
Excellent. Who would like to tackle that?
I would like to, and I think that the most important thing that we understand and that we realize is that when we talk about these companies, and Omar, I know that you are in the high tech, and all of your companies are very high tech, high growth perspective.
I still haven't mentioned high tech yet.
The villages and these small entrepreneurs are the ones that employ 99% of the world's population. These are the real entrepreneurs, and when you look at a VC fund, the ability to take that money, to put it on the street, and to deploy that money needs to come from technology. There's a couple of ways to do that. It can be very much with follow-on funding, because the person that knows the restaurant the best is the consumer of that restaurant, the people that visit that restaurant. And if the people of that restaurant lend money or make a investment in that restaurant, it's very easy then for investment funds to come, because number one, you have the credibility that we were all talking about. You have the credibility based on their own consumers, but number two, you have access. And it's that access that technology brings. So we have platforms all over the world that are able to do this. We just need to get this done in North Africa.
Anyone else want to take a stab at this question? Tariq, you're very involved with microfinance as well. So maybe that's something that would address your questions?
I agree with him. So
okay, great. So we'll take the next question then. Okay. Okay, I promised that gentleman over there, the third question.
So hello everyone. Hello everyone.
Yep.
I want first to thank you for your sharing all. So I'm Yusuf Tabba. I'm a student from ISCA Casablanca, and I'm also the vice president of Agir, which is the junior enterprise of ISCA. So we work with a lot of big companies, but our main mission is to help young entrepreneurs to launch their projects. We help them establishing their business models and also doing their market studies. So my question is about what Mr. Kako brought up earlier. It's about access to information about financing. So my question is, what is for all the panelists? What is the best way for a young entrepreneur to access to this information? So this is my question.
Information
about financing.
About financing.
Okay, about financing. Excellent. Who would like to?
Sure.
Yes,
so I think the best way, in my opinion, is to often ask other entrepreneurs. I think that's very important because if you can ask other entrepreneurs, they can not only tell you where they were able to get financing, but they will share with you some of the experience and the process they used. For me, that's very important because more than the name of a bank or a name of a fund, what entrepreneurs need to understand are the specifics on how do you approach it so that it is successful. So the more entrepreneurs you ask, the more you will learn. I think that's one thing. Second, if you can go to incubators, I think Morocco has a number of incubators. I was able to see a few of them here. It would also be a second place to go for that kind of information. And then finally, I find that commercial bankers, even when they can't give you a loan, if you are nice to them and you ask them sincerely, they would at least tell you where you can go to find some resources.
So be nice. Yes. I think this may be our last question. I'm sorry, guys. We have a minute and a half left. But I think that our panelists would be around and maybe interested in answering your questions. So, yes, please.
Yes, I'm an entrepreneur in Morocco for the last 8 years and in technology, in services. You talked about credibility earlier. My question is very simple. If we had a Mark Zuckerberg in Morocco or in Africa, would we have been able to finance him? I don't think so, but I hope that there is hope there will be an answer to this question. I think there is a huge gap, and I think a lot of us here in this region of the world have given up on banks and have given up on all these big words that we hear from the US, and we are finding other ways.
Thank you for that question. Please, guys, would any of you finance the next Mark Zuckerberg, knowing that he won't make money for 5 to 10 years, he won't have any paying clients for 5 to 10 years, he needs to spend $100 million to build out his product before he gets anywhere? And I think this is a fitting last question. Please, go ahead.
I agree with you. It's very difficult for us as bankers in Morocco to actually be able, because also you have to understand that Mark Zuckerberg was financed in the United States because of a very big history in the United States of financing such people. He's not the first one to come forward and to come across. And there is a whole culture in the United States towards taking risks for this kind of people, because there is a history for that. So what you and I are doing here is building our own history. So just as we have to take risk with you to help you, emerge as maybe the next Mark Zuckerberg, you have to also be patient and maybe go the extra step to come to your local bank, maybe not to the local branch, but I can tell you that in all Moroccan banks now, you have special departments that will listen to you, try to be more aggressive, and try to break the barriers. I'm here standing next to you. I'm ready to listen to you. I'm telling you this officially. But what I want to come across with is that just as we need to get used to the market, this new market, the market needs to get used to talking to us in a way that we will hear it, okay? So it's a process. We are getting there. We are hiring also young talents, people who can understand this type of new businesses. We invest a lot of money in trying to get to this kind of people. So it's a process. Don't expect us to change from being an old-time banker to a new type of, New York-based bank overnight. But I can assure you that we're getting there. Really.
I guess for me, maybe to give you one last thought or one last idea, to all the entrepreneurs out there, what you need is intelligent capital. What you need is intelligent capital. What I mean by intelligent capital is the right combination of skills, insights, and money. I mean, it's dollars and cents, but cents with S-E-N-S-E. The reason why I think it is important is because it is that knowledge that will allow you to go the extra mile in terms of maximizing the impact.
I don't want to interrupt you, but we know what we need. The problem is we can't find it.
I just want to add something to that.
I actually disagree with that, but that's another conversation.
The solutions are here.
I met yesterday a company, I don't know if they are here, their name is Lulis. They are not here. So what they do is they help Moroccan artisans sell their products in a very innovative way to organic businesses across the US. And my point with them is, even though they're a Moroccan-based business and even though there is no VC, they are able to compete in one of the best competition globally, and they are getting notice from investors across the world. So with technology and information, you have access to grants, competitions, awards, and I think you should seek that because people are looking for very good business models, and everyone in Morocco has the potential to create innovative business model, and that's what people are investing in.
Sorry. So I have to wrap up. We're out of time. Thank you very much for the panelists. Thank you for the audience for your great questions. I hope that our panelists will stay around and answer and address your concerns one-on-one. Thank you very much.
Thank you.